Good evening, everyone. It is Thursday, March 12th, 2026. This is the Arts and Culture Board. We are missing Tim and Kate tonight, but everyone else is here. Thank you very much. And while not official yet, everyone who sought appointment to this group was reappointed. So congratulations. We'll keep the band together for one more year.
Are we getting any new people, or is that
Nope.
just reappointed? It's great.
I think it was a very solid endorsement of the work that we've done and recognizing that the role that everyone plays. So I'll take it.
Love it.
Our city council liaison is not here tonight. He's not able to join us. So that takes us to director's reports.
We have notes though.
Oh, we have notes.
You said that more.
All Councilmember Zink would like to say, I'd like to congratulate folks who were reappointed to the Arts and Culture Board. It was a great interview process with some very competitive candidates. I'm glad that the current team will be continuing forward with the good work that is already underway. Those reappointments will be voted on as part of the consent agenda at the March 17th meeting, so don't egg anyone's house between now and then. That last part was me.
He prepared jokes.
But I'm fun.
The council study session scheduled for March 24th will be canceled and the topics set to be addressed will be addressed at another session. Part of this was supposed to include a conversation with the LDDA, who is launching their first public art program, which is centered around a particular mural project. Please see attached email and feel free to share. The council final 3 hours or so of the council retreat were cut short by an emergency evacuation due to a wildfire. The remaining follow-up is scheduled to be addressed at the April 7th council meeting. That remaining portion was supposed to have included conversation around each council member's individual's goals, ideas, and priorities. So there you have it. Now, thank you very much for printing that. Director's reports.
Just one thing from the museum, we have hired our new curator of exhibits, Brack Lee, will be joining us March 23rd. Comes from Longmont Museum, so we're happy to say we poached another professional from one of our neighbors. Yeah, it's always fun and satisfying. And we're sorry for Longmont's awesome, of course. But he's gonna be a great addition to the team, great personality, really good skill set. He was clearly our number one choice, but we had 3 really good, strong finalists. So if we had run into trouble with our first candidate, we would have had some really nice options, I think. But we're happy to have him coming on board, and he seems to be equally excited to be joining us. So we will welcome him later this month.
Sweet. For the library front, our spring reading challenge is underway through April 4th, I believe, and the prize sponsor is In-N-Out Burgers. So if that suits your fancy, read 5 titles and you get a free coupon. We also have been having some good luck on hiring. We made an offer on a vacant clerk position and are moving forward to fill the vacancy in our bookmobile position. Some progress there. And relative to the interest of this board, this Sunday, March 15th at 3 p.m. we'll be hosting the McTaggart Irish Dancers. That's all.
Thank you very much. Next up is public comment. Pam Chadbourne, I saw you walk in. Would you like to make comment tonight?
Sure, I was sure I had missed it. Thank you. See, I'm Pam Chadbourne and I live in downtown Littleton, District 1. So I've got a request and it's about the records available to the public about this meeting. The board and commission interviews were a couple of weeks ago, and certainly we attract a lot of talent and there's interest in this board, definitely. But I'm concerned about public exclusion from our boards and commissions and a lack of accessibility to information. I've been watching Littleton city government for about 15 years. And during that time, the public has less information, less inclusion now than we did before. It isn't necessary, it's very fixable. And so let me talk about it a little bit. For this board, the records only go back to April 2024, and only your agendas and videos are available. You have no action minutes posted. And there's no archive of the museum and library boards that existed before. I don't think that that serves the city at all, or you. You guys could use access to those records, and all of us could. What's weird too is now we have websites and digital data. It's not like it's all paper anymore. It's much easier to do this stuff, and yet we have less access. And state law, let me just say, state law is not the requirement. It is not an operations procedure. It is the minimum requirement to prevent abuse to the public. We, the city, get to set our own standards, and 15 years ago, we had much more inclusion. So my request is that you post document packets digitally. I would like to believe that some of that at least is accessible before the meeting so that you guys can come prepared. And the public should see those too. And they should definitely be there as part of the record for the meeting. There's a meeting and videos website, and that's there. I guess there's more to say about this. I'm concerned about the direction that the city is going. I'm concerned about the isolation of boards and commissions from each other and a lack of knowledge. You guys should know what the DDA is doing and the Downtown Development Authority, and they should know what you're doing. I would like to see murals that are historic and tie corridors together, not that have, a lady with a comb on the side of a hairdressing business. So anyway, I think there's reasons for more information being shared and integration of boards and commissions work. Thank you.
Thank you. I don't see anyone else joining us from the public tonight, so I will then move on to our presentations portion of the meeting. And are you?
I will.
Thank you.
Everyone, please welcome, is it Michael Verdone? Is how you, I probably should have confirmed how you pronounce your last name prior, but Michael Verdone from BBC Research and Consulting. Michael is the managing director, and he's here, of course, with Rachel tonight from Economic Development to present on the progress and next steps, as well as preliminary results of our Arts and Culture Economic Impact Study. And for many of you here, I'm sure that's probably first thing you've heard of this, but it's the sort of a natural progression from our Arts and Culture Community Strategic Plan, which I know you're all deeply familiar with by now.
It's memorized.
Yeah. Give me just a minute to connect, and then we'll get started here.
Rachel King's going to be joining us every month from here on out.
We'll make
I
sure.
are the most,
Yes.
I would say, yeah, it's a good group to join.
Does anybody?
Yes.
Think so.
There you go. Take it away.
Project better from over here. Good evening, everybody. As Anna said, I'm Michael Verdone. I'm leading the project on behalf of BBC Research and Consulting. Really appreciate the opportunity to come here tonight, get in front of all of you and just share the progress of what we've been doing, but also to gather your feedback. So we know that this board is very important for directing the grants and for catalyzing different arts and culture activities that go on throughout the community. And so I think it's really important both to have your insight into the results, what's meaningful, maybe what's not, but also into the impacts of the results themselves. What do they mean? What do you think you might do with them? And where can it sort of steer this board in terms of its granting direction? So with that, I'm just gonna dive in. So let's see here. So the study goals and objectives for the economic impact study are really to, one, estimate the economic impacts of the arts and culture sector as a whole, but also to understand what are the drivers of those impacts. So when we look across arts and culture, what sorts of things are bringing in outside money and actually creating that economic activity that we're measuring. And we're thinking of it in three key pillars. So one is arts and culture businesses. Then, of course, we have the events and then the grants that you all give as well. We're also providing feedback on any missing elements in the arts and culture sector. So, what do other communities that are of similar size have maybe that Littleton doesn't, and what would potentially be added? We also want to use our estimates from the economic impact study to look at the connection between tourism and lodging, since the lodging tax is a significant funder of your grants, or I think the entire funding of your grant program. And then find any low-hanging fruit, things that would be relatively simple to do that could sort of catalyze further economic activity in the sectors. That's sort of the overall scope of our economic impact project. And just to kind of cut to the details here, these are really preliminary numbers. They are very likely to change before the final report comes out, but we did want to have some rough estimates to present to you tonight. And so if you look at the bottom there, these are sort of our estimates of what the total economic impact of all arts and culture-based businesses, events, and grants are in the city. So about 316 jobs are created, sustained by arts and culture, generating about $15.3 million in income and about $36 million in economic output. You can see the businesses are the main drivers of this, and businesses may be a little bit of a misnomer because maybe businesses and organizations is a better word, because the library is in there, Hudson Gardens is in there, the museum is in there. So I would consider it maybe businesses and organizations rather than just businesses. The events sort of speak for themselves and the grants as well. And we'll talk about each one of these in more detail, but I just wanted you to sort of get a picture, the sense of the size of the economic activity that's going on here. It's significant.
Michael, sorry, if you wouldn't mind going back real quick, could you spend a quick minute on kind of the high level difference between income and output?
Yeah, so income obviously is just the money you're paid. Output is more what I think of as like gross sales, right? So sort of a turnover, how much money is being spent, circulated, generated throughout the economy. You're welcome. So a couple of things that I think are important to sort of interpret the results and just think through what we mean by impact. Impact is basically money that wouldn't exist but for something that is being done. So because you have an arts and culture sector that has events, businesses, and organizations, people from outside of the community are coming in and they are spending their money. They're spending it directly on the events and the businesses and the organizations, but they're also sticking around and they go to restaurants and they might go to a retail shop and they may spend the night. And that's where the impact comes. They're spending their money at businesses in the community, and that money then gets circulated, and that creates the ripple effect that creates all of the impacts that we're measuring. So it's really being able to attract people who aren't already here. They're not residents. They're coming from Denver. They're coming from Northern Colorado, from parts of Douglas County, right outside the community. They're bringing their money and they're spending it, and that is the source of impact. And the ability of that sector to attract visitors is pretty astounding. So these are data from a firm called Placer AI. I don't know if you all are familiar with it or not, but they basically track where folks are coming from. So we can look at different events that have been held in the city, different venues, and see when people come, are they coming from outside or inside? And that's where we took all of this data, lined it up, and what we see is that for just the select events and organizations that we have in this table, there's about 351,000 people that come from outside the city each year to either attend one of these events or go to Hudson Gardens or the Town Hall Arts Center. We have more data that we haven't been able to analyze yet for the other organizations and businesses, but this is just our snapshot so far. So that's a pretty astounding result, right? More people are coming from outside than inside. And then we were able to take that estimate and line it up with data from another arts and culture survey to estimate how much those folks might be spending. And we think that total might be something like $16.1 million per year. You can see that Hudson Gardens is responsible for the lion's share of that, right? About 10.5 million, because they're bringing in 200,000+ people per year from outside the city. But even things like Music in the Burbs are bringing in 40,000 people a year and generating over $1.5 million of spending. the criterium, block party, all of those. They're all adding up to a pretty significant impact.
Would you like questions as we go or at the end?
Whatever you, fine either way. We can just ask them as we go.
So can you interpret Hudson Gardens that the 224,000 number is what?
That's the number of people that went there from inside the city.
That
We don't know.
Yes, it's maybe one person going many times. I would say these are visits, right?
Yeah.
So we don't know if it's one person going once or one person going 10 times.
But it's an average of each resident going 4.5 times
Well,
every
even
year.
further than that, what is the geography of Placer? Could that be somebody with a cell phone pings, riding their bike down the trail?
I mean, I don't know exactly how Placer collects their data. We'd have to ask them. I mean, their interpretation of it is that they can tell you who went to Hudson Gardens and where they came from when they went there.
I think Placer, we've had a few conversations with the Placer teams over the last couple of years, and I think they can drill in a slightly scary way. They can drill down where your home is and understand if you're coming from home, if you're coming from work, if you're coming from McDonald's, right, wherever you're coming from, and then visiting the location and then returning back to that home base again. So there is some fluidity in the Placer data, but it seems to be the most accurate in the market right now in terms of attendance data for public events.
Mitchell and Michael, I would just note that Placer AI is notoriously inaccurate with our museum numbers. First year that the city test drove it, they had us listed as 12,000 visitors annually. We had 120,000 that year, and that was a hard count. So the number they have there for the crapper isn't really accurate either. So I just, there's a little hesitation on Placer AI from our perspective.
Yeah, that's great. And I mean, that's why we wanted to present all of this tonight, right? I mean, we're still mid-process. So this is great feedback to vet these numbers further. They don't pass the smell test here, then obviously there's some work to be done. So that's great feedback.
So like, just in my head, this is like a weird total, like the total 262 Littleton residents, but I know there's like 42,000 or something Littleton resident like that. To me is just like, it's hard to process. Also, what is Music in the Birds?
We just had to look at it.
If you did, I don't.
It's sure enough, it's at Aspen Grove.
Yes.
Yeah, it's at the bar box.
It's
Yeah.
the summer.
It's in August, and so.
Yeah, it's usually every Friday night, I think, in Aspen Grove
Okay.
with the bar box
Yeah.
there,
Okay.
so. And they're repeating that this year. I can't recall the first year they did that event, but yes.
And then I wanted to just get back to your first question about
The total
interpreting.
residents,
Yeah, so
yeah.
it's basically, if you took the 262, it means that each resident's going to an event or an organization about 5 times a year.
Okay.
So every
Okay,
other
that's
month.
like an easier way to
Mhm.
digest it. Like that to me is off, like, but yeah, I understand now.
Is
I
it
think
perhaps
they're
fair to say that
visits.
that's the number of visits made
Yes,
by?
that's correct.
Yeah,
Littleton
visits.
residents
Yes.
and number of visits made by folks from other
Yes,
areas?
that's right.
And just as tangible, when we met with economic development, with tourism, they were basically saying they was just using Placer as like a component of driving, visit Littleton stuff. Just a reminder.
And then also the list of events here, or is this the only ones you're using? Because the museum is excluded, ACC is excluded.
There's a bunch of
And the
stuff.
criterium's gone. We're not doing the criterium anymore.
Well, that
Yeah,
was
but
from
it's just
last
data.
year.
That's
We're
a-
looking
but
at a
still.
snapshot of what
I'm just
happened.
curious, like, is this the whole list or is there more?
No, there's more. So the other events line has a bunch of stuff rolled up in it. It would have been a very long list if I had listed out every single event. So.
I think it's fair to say that this slide might be a bit stinky.
Sounds fair, yeah.
Did you have a question?
Oh, it was just if there were gonna be other things at Aspen Grove,
Mhm.
other events too, because I know they do a lot.
They do.
And Rocks Art Gallery does a
Mhm.
lot, et cetera. So Thank
Thank
you.
you.
So just a couple of notes on what we mean by talking about economic effects. We sort of think of it in three layers. There's what we call the direct effect. So that's basically me taking my money, spending it at a business, right? It's sort of the first connection that I make. The indirect effect is that business then taking some of that money and they turn around and they have to procure goods and services from other businesses in order to sell me a meal or provide some retail good or something like that. So that's the indirect part. Both the businesses that are directly and indirectly affected have employees, they pay those employees, and those employees take some of their money and they spend it at other businesses in the community. And that's what we call an induced effect. And so when we talk about economic impact, it's really the sum of effects at those three levels that constitute what we would consider an economic impact. And so I wanted to just introduce that concept before we dove into what some of the preliminary figures look like for different entities. So we did collect information from Hudson Gardens on their annual expenditures, again, the visitation data from Placer AI, and based on what they spend, the portion of their spending funded by non-residents, right? So that's, again, what we're looking at. It's not what's the total footprint of Hudson Gardens, it's what part of their footprint do we think is being paid for by outsiders, so folks from outside the community. And how much are those folks spending? And when we go through all of that and put it through the economic impact model, we think Hudson Gardens is generating in the arena of about 82 jobs, about $4 million worth of income for their employees and across the employees of the indirect and induced effect businesses as well, and about $10.5 million of economic output. So, when we looked at that sort of overall figure of 30 million, about a third of that is Hudson Gardens.
And when you talk about employment, is that full-time equivalent?
It doesn't really account for full or part-time. I mean, it's just folks that are employed.
Does that include volunteers as well then?
It would not.
No.
I'm sorry, just one more since we're talking about Hudson Gardens. Is that just on site or are those administrators that work in other facilities that oversee Hudson Gardens?
So the 78 direct is not just at Hudson Gardens. That's basically 78 jobs that are created either at Hudson Gardens or as a result of people visiting there, spending money elsewhere in the community. So it could be at a range of businesses. This is really, what is the impact of Hudson Gardens on the city of Littleton?
So is that number calculated by like the income? Like, how do you get to that number then?
Yeah, so the number is basically what we do is we figure out how much money is Hudson Gardens spending to run their operation. And what portion of that do we think is financed by visitors from outside the community? Then we look at how many folks are coming from outside the community and where do we think they are spending their money? So is it retail? Is it a restaurant? Is it at a hotel or motel? And then the economic impact model essentially allows us to put in those spending amounts, and it has it's huge matrices that basically connects all these different sectors and figures out if I spend $1 here, where does that dollar go? And how many times does it turn over to create all of the sort of ripple effects? So that's really what it's looking at.
Are these, so when you say are these national models, state models? How are you making these decisions?
Yeah, so the model is basically bounded for Littleton, so you can drill down to the zip code level. So I mean, essentially, we can see, that's the lowest unit of observation geographically is the zip code, but it essentially tracks everything within that area. So we've modeled Littleton based on zip codes.
Michael, BBC is using implant, correct?
We're using the implant
Yeah,
model,
so-
which is sort of the standard for this.
Mhm. I think this group heard, I should have mentioned this too, but I think this group heard from Meredith, was it last month with the CBCA?
Oh, at the CAP group meeting, yes.
Yes,
Yeah.
so, yes, the CAP group meeting, the CBCA's report was prepared by the BBC team, with Kevin and Michael. So the same methodology is being utilized for this one, is the CBCA report.
Ready to go on? So we did the same thing for Town Hall Arts Center, and it's about 15 jobs that are created to sustain there, about 800,000 of income, nearly $2 million of economic output based on the Placer AI data. One thing we did do is we took the spending estimates that we had and figured out what portion of those are for lodging. So about 21% of visitor spending is related to lodging. So doing some rough math, right? We took that 16.1 million, took 21% of that. That gave us a figure of like $3.4 million that we think is spent on lodging from folks outside the community. Took your lodging tax and just did the math to figure out it's about $170,000 a year. The strategic plan noted that it thought all like citywide hotel motel spending was about $21 million. So this would imply that about 16% of that total is related to arts and culture. I think that number might be a bit high. And again, these are all, you know, kind of works in progress, but just to kind of give you all a sense of the magnitude of what portion of the lodging tax might be generated by folks coming into the community for arts and culture events, we thought this would be worth calculating and reporting.
I've got a quick question about the previous slide. So with employment, even with direct and indirect, I believe that the artists get paid, right, for each one. So is that going to be counted? The theater folk that come in that I'm assuming get paid for these performances, I would think would qualify for employment even if it's part-time.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good question. I guess the overall view of this is that like these are kind of quick breakout boxes of like what do we think the impacts are that are being driven by visitor spending from at these different organizations. But our scope was sort of sector wide, so we just don't have the information for like Town Hall Art Center to drill down
Would you like it?
to that level. I mean, we
To
can
help that
certainly look
number?
at it.
I mean, Town Hall, and so I'm very familiar with Town Hall Art Center. And they employ 250 to 280 people a year through contracts and talent. And the other question I had is how do your models compare with Americans for the Arts economic impact calculators? Because from what I'm reading, they don't line up at all.
I don't know that that's necessarily the case. It's probably a difference in like methodology, because ultimately everybody's using the same model, right? They're gonna use Implan or its competitor RIMS, but I mean, there's really only those two available. So I mean, I don't know what they did or why they would necessarily be different. All of them at some point at the base level, they just work on spending, right? So I mean, it's just how much money are you putting into the economy and where does it go into the economy at? Those are the only two differences that you could possibly have. So beyond that, I mean, I couldn't really explain, you know, why they might be different or what those differences could be.
And I think, Michael, you worked with the town hall team on gathering some.
All
of
this
too.
information came from them, and you know, basically what we collected from them were their budget, right? So how much are they spending each year? And then the number of visitors from inside and outside the community, right? And then we take their budget, figure out if, you know, 50% of their visitors are from out of town, right? Half of their operating budget then we say is created by that outside spending. And then we're taking that and just putting it into performing arts sector in the Implan model. And then it's essentially modeling what it thinks the employment income and output would be based on spending in that sector.
Can I interject something too? If people have questions about the methodology, this is the CBCA summary report form. As Rachel mentioned, BBC did all the modeling work and all of that for that. So there's a link on here for you to access the full report and learn more about how that worked.
Could we go back to the definition of direct, indirect, and induced employment?
Sure.
So direct doesn't necessarily mean like employees of the place.
It just means, yeah, like if I'm a visitor and I come into town and I spend money at a restaurant, at a retail establishment, right? Like I'm creating employment at those businesses. And so when we're looking at like the direct impact of Hudson Gardens, right? That direct number is all of the jobs that are created by the spending of people Hudson Gardens is bringing in that are then spending their money elsewhere.
So it's not necessarily like 78 jobs at Hudson
That's
Gardens. Okay.
That's right.
And I had a clarifying question from somebody else, if you can go like 2 more. So can you explain, like, is there a way to show or study like the people that came into Littleton for arts and culture events that stayed in Inglewood or Highlands Ranch? Like they came here for our arts and culture, but they didn't stay in Littleton.
There might be, we don't have that data, but maybe Placer AI has a way to do that. We do. We also looked at the impacts of just the grant spending. So based on the data we have, it looked like there's an average of about $662,000 of grants given out each year across the different tiers. We know that tier 1 is the biggest share of that across those 4 different organizations. I do think tier 3 is interesting because it's sort of where the rubber meets the road, right? That tourism marketing and visitor promotion is the way to get folks into Littleton who might not know what else is going on here if they're not from town. So that to me is a pretty important piece for being only 15% of the total grant budget, because I think it might catalyze some of the activity that we're seeing in the data. So something to think about. And what we did here is we just took that 662,000 and we broke it out into sectors and just said, okay, if you're spending, $100,000 in this sector, how much impact is that generating? I realize some of the money is given out for some of the events that we had in this list. And so that impact's captured by the spending of those folks. The grant spending is literally just if you spend $100,000 in the sector the grant went to, how much employment and income do you get? In total, the grant program's probably generating about 5 direct jobs across various different industries in Littleton, about 300,000 a year of income and maybe 800,000 a year of economic output. So, about what you're spending is sort of the impact you're creating, which shouldn't be a super surprising result.
So if you back up one, I think to truly capture this, we should represent the entire grant amount, which accounts for at least 1 more job sitting in this room. Because that is part of the lodger's tax. So there's a 5th line here, which is admin and overhead, which is a couple 150,000 or so a year-ish.
About 110,000.
Yeah.
Certainly, good feedback. So that's kind of the nuts and bolts of this whole thing. I really wanted to kind of end here on a discussion point, right? Because the whole goal of this is to give you guys an actionable report, not just one that says, hey, the arts and culture sector creates impacts and hooray, let's all celebrate it. It's what does this mean and what can we do to support that sector further so that we're generating more economic activity for the businesses, the arts and cultural organizations within the city. And so we've got a list of questions. We can talk through as many of them as time allows for. I wanted to just start with, what results and insights stand out and what should be highlighted. I was hoping for a more positive one. I think we got a lot of feedback on what stood out for the wrong reasons. So that's also useful. But maybe if there's anything positive you saw, we can talk about that.
What do you see? Do you see any summary?
Yeah, I think the things that are interesting, right, are that there's a lot of outside visitation to arts and culture organizations and events. And those folks are bringing in a lot of money that wouldn't otherwise be here. And so I think a question is, how do you lean into that and try to bring more of those folks and make sure that they know about all the different things that the city is doing that they might want to be a part of, that they might not know about because they don't live here. So I think that was one that I saw. There's certainly a sort of positive feedback loop between visitors and the lodging tax, right? How do you get people not just to come here, but how do you get them to maybe stay overnight when they wouldn't have otherwise? And then, what sorts of things maybe are worth trying to support in ways maybe you haven't thought of? So when you have an event, is there a way to make sure that there's a benefit to the local businesses as well? So I don't just come and go to the music venue or I go to the event at Aspen Grove and then I leave, but I'm gonna drive somewhere else and maybe have a dinner afterwards, or, you know, spend money in the city. So how do you kind of make those linkages? So those are the things that I saw that look positive and like they could have some opportunity.
I guess my question is a little nitpicky about your data with that people are coming for Hudson Gardens and then going to lunch or going to a shop. How do you know that they're not planning on lunch and just happen at Hudson Gardens?
Yeah, I mean, we
I mean-
would, well.
I mean,
the
so
fact that
I
they
don't,
do
there's a
know-
point where that money may be coming from,
Like if they
You know.
stop at a restaurant first is.
I'd have to go back and look at the placer data. I mean, I do know that there's some data that shows where folks are coming from or where not. And I mean, I guess the point of all of this, right, is like, these are all these are fair points, right? You're never gonna have a sector-wide model where you're gonna be able to just drill down to the level of detail of knowing like, where did each person come from? What was their motivation for being here, right? I mean, we have to deal at a sector-wide level in some averages with some assumptions. It's just sort of the nature of the beast, unfortunately. So fair nitpicky point. There's just no real good answer to it other than we have the best data we can use and bring to bear, and you have to just make some assumptions on it.
Do you mean to ask about the motivation on the
well,
visit
just
or-
that you're making statements about the data, that this is what they're doing and you were making an assumption. So I just want that acknowledged, I think, is that the data is not, the data can be skewed in lots of different ways.
Is there a way to understand, when you talk about outside income and money that was brought into Littleton from outside places, is there any way to measure retained income, which is to say that I, as a resident of Littleton, stayed here and saw a show at town hall or listened to a symphony versus taking my money and going to Aurora or Arvada? So it's still net gain from the arts and culture elements that we have here. Certainly probably more challenging to measure, but I have to imagine it's significant.
Yeah, I mean, the way you would do that is probably with like intercept surveys from folks, right? And like, you're walking out of a show and I might ask you like, why did you decide to come here and not go somewhere else? There's certainly nothing with the information that we have access to, I think, that would allow us to answer that. Other than to say that, you know, look, we know that there are a lot of visits originating from inside the city, but you know, how many of those would have gone somewhere else if they hadn't gone here? I don't know that we could really answer that in a defensible way.
Michael, what about the leakage data for neighboring arts and culture sectors in jurisdictions surrounding Littleton? Is that
Like
feasible within the data?
how much they, I'm not quite sure.
So if we don't have certain assets here, but a neighboring community does, you know, is there an analysis on leakage for that could be worked within in-plan?
Not necessarily in an
Okay.
easy way.
Okay.
So can I just confirm, when it comes to placer, do you just like make a request to the city and say, give me your placer data and then just make that table? Or is it factoring into your model? Are you sanitizing it at all?
So the placer
Doesn't sound
data,
like it.
I mean, essentially they would say, okay, you have an event on this day and time and place. And then again, like I don't work for them. I can't represent their data.
Well, I just don't know
really-
why, I mean,
Yeah,
my trouble with a lot of, I mean, maybe you get a little skepticism in the room is because like the data can either work for you or work against you. And when it's working against you, it like sticks out like a sore thumb. So maybe like, was there a reason to use it, or is that just your main source of it?
yeah, I mean, otherwise, I don't know. I mean, maybe you can speak to this, but I don't know that we'd be able to know how many folks went to these different events, for example, or you know, for organizations that don't track visitation, right? How many folks went there from outside the community versus residents? Right, at some level, you've got to know that level of information.
So things like RIMS doesn't tell you that?
No, I mean,
None of
they're
that,
just,
this is a completely,
RIMS and implant are
economic data.
just They're
Got it.
just sector, like
Yeah.
economic models. Yeah, they
Yep.
have no concept of visitation or anything like that.
Oh, when the city makes the data request to Placer, we do have, it's not a blanket request. We have the ability to toggle, different, data sets or factors in the data request, but we also have Placer reps available that we can talk through the type of data that we're trying to pull from the system, and then they can help make sure that the request is, programmed correctly to
Gotcha.
get the most accurate data that they have, which there's a question on that, certainly with cell phones, but you know, it's not usually just a blanket request.
I was meaning, I was figuring you probably had campaigns already set up in place or for like either the event or the event time or the
Sometimes.
date or something
Yeah.
like that, or you're asking, hey, here's all this list of events. And then it's gonna even start asking you more questions, which is what are these other events? And is that data coming from Placer too? What's the significance of those other events to
Some-
even show them?
Sometimes we do have running reports for this particular study. Michael, I think you even participated in a call with the Placer team where we connected them to make sure that we're all speaking the same language in terms of the data that's being requested and the data that's being provided by their systems. So we certainly have, you know, the comms team, for example, is obviously interested in
Oh, yeah.
attendance on events, so they have some running reports. But for this study in particular, these were custom requests.
So go ahead.
Does Placer have some sort of algorithm that accounts for people who don't have cell phones? Cause say I have 3 kids under the age of 10 and show up to a thing that's 4 people and not just one, but only one phone? Do you know?
I don't know what their response to that answer would be. I think there's something in the back of my head telling me we have reviewed this in a presentation with Placer before, and again, I think there's a household algorithm.
Okay.
I don't wanna confirm that though, but that's a good question.
Okay.
Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no, go ahead, please.
Just on this slide, I struggle with other events because I feel like I don't know what it is. And so I'd rather have it be all other events, which I don't suspect we have data for, or list the events that this includes, or take it out, because I don't think it's representative of, it doesn't give me a base that I can work with.
Yeah, I think like the other events could also be, it seems like a small number considering other events. I would think that would be probably one of the biggest numbers in there because there's so many other things going on in Littleton that are smaller events. And my question was actually gonna be, we're focused on events, but we sometimes joke here at the museum that every day is an event here, you know? That, you know, at the library, there's a lot of, you know, really smaller events and programs and things like that going on. And, you know, arts people, we put our heart and soul into, you know, one thing where 15 people attend, but that does add up over time. And so for a place like Littleton Ballet, where there's classes, you know, all the time, there are still people driving in and maybe spending money and buying gas and doing these things on a daily basis that isn't event specific. So I don't know if that's something that is gonna be examined or
Well, I
not.
mean, just your openings here.
Mhm.
Like
Opening
guaranteed,
sessions.
those are people from outside of Littleton, the ones I've been to.
Yeah, I would, and just to chime in on that, I mean, obviously I work for the college. I say over and over again, we're a college town. College isn't even included. I would say a majority of the people who come to ACC from outside are coming from Aurora, they're coming from Parker, they're coming from Castle Rock, they're coming from Englewood, they're coming from Denver. They're coming and they are participating in arts and culture at the college and going downtown. And I was just at happy hour. I mean, we are constantly using that space. So just having the college not even there, it's crazy to me.
Well, again, like, I think we all need to back up from this a bit, just to sort of realize like these are preliminary results, right? I'm trying to give you a snapshot of what we're looking at. So these are not final, these are not the answer. This is not comprehensive, right? These are the data that we've been able to analyze to get a presentation put together to come here tonight and share some information. So all of this stuff can certainly be added in. If it's missing, it doesn't mean it will be missing in the end, or if it needs to be included, it certainly can be. So I just wanted to add some context to this, that this is not.
So what are your next steps?
Well, so the next steps are to come here, gather feedback from, the presentation, what you all thought. And then we have more information that we've been collecting, right? We're sort of this is maybe like 6 weeks into the process. So we're still going through the data, still collecting data. So I think at this point, it's just getting sources of information ironed out, right? Going back and cross-examining the placer data to make sure that it's as accurate as we can get it to be. I mean, to some extent, right? We either need other visitor counts for these different events, or we have to use placer because if we have no information, right, you can't really do anything. So you need to quantify how many folks are coming and where they're coming from. And the placer data seemed like the best way to do that. The college is certainly in there, right? We have data for the college as part of the study. It's just not part of this table. So I have not ignored it. And
Okay. It's pretty big.
Yeah. So sorry, I feel like maybe we just all it was a misunderstanding of what this really is. And what it is, again, is just a snapshot of what we've done so far and generally a sense of the direction we're trending in. But these are not final or anything like it.
So this eventually gets presented to council. I'm
Correct.
guessing, do you know when? Is that scheduled yet?
I think we're looking, because of the March 24th date that Joe mentioned in his report getting canceled, there's a lot of shifting dates right now. I think the tentative one we're looking at is June 9th.
Okay.
Kind of to Jenny's point about like visitors to classes and things like that, I would be curious to know if it's possible to get like recurring visitor data. I know like we kind of had that discussion about like, okay, that's not Littleton residents, it would be visits by Littleton residents. I would be curious to know what that looks like, if there's any way to quantify for individual events or organizations.
I think it's a great question. I do want to just keep us within the scope of our particular
Sure.
project, which is like the economic impact. And I want to go back specifically to the last slide here, because I do think you all have a lot of valuable input that can shape sort of the conclusions that we draw from the study. And so instead of I appreciate the comments on the nuts and bolts of how it's getting done. And I think we've had good discussion on that, but I would love to hear your thoughts on some of these other parts from some of the preliminary observations about can the board support grant criteria that prioritize regional destination events? What can you do to incentivize grant funding that helps tie funding to things that are generating overnight stays? How can the economic anchors, right, those tier 1 organizations, be integrated with the tier 3 tourism and marketing? What else can you do to place make so that there's a bigger incentive to draw people in from the outside? I think all of these are really areas where you all can have a lot of input as well, and so I'd love to hear some of your ideas there.
So what end? I mean, we're not the experts. I'd much rather hear you say, here's what you should do with your grant spending and here's why.
Well, I think it's to set some guardrails of like what if you look at this list of questions, what do you all come up with that would seem like things that are reasonable or not reasonable? Right. I mean, ultimately, like I can come in here and say anything, but it has to have buy-in, right? And so I'm trying to engage you all to see kind of what the general sentiment is for different things, how you all feel about it.
One question I would have is on your second item there, the board support adding grant criteria that prioritizes regional destination events. What are you thinking what do you mean when you say regionals? I think one of the areas we would run into potentially some trouble with council is if we tried grant funding events or organizations that were outside our city limits. I know that's one of the things that has been a definite criteria that council has given us.
I think
over the years.
it's more things that are regional draws, right? So I mean, you have like maybe a big foot race or something like Boulder has the Boulder, the Boulder Boulders. It's bringing all these people into town from outside of town and they're sticking around for the afternoon and the day,
Okay,
something like
I
that.
see what you're saying, okay.
Well, we have the criterion.
Yeah, we have the criterion, but I mean, I think you can definitely say Hudson Gardens is one of those, so that does bring, that is a regional draw. I would say a positive takeaway particularly from this last slide, Michael, is that number 3, because I would not have guessed that arts and culture generates 16% of the lodging stays. If I was ballparking it just off the top of my head, I would have said maybe half that. I think that's actually a pretty positive number to start from.
From your experience, do you have a concept of the sorts of things that generate overnight stays?
Yeah, I mean, I think concerts and events, things like that are probably your most likely where someone's coming late at night, right? There's probably a reason that they're not gonna wanna drive home at 1 or 2 in the morning. Weddings might be, I would guess Hudson Garden might be responsible
Yeah,
for a fair
there's
amount of
wedding.
overnight stays as well for that reason.
What about, like, for number 2 here, like formally partner with local retail and dining, did you account for like Breckenridge Brewery and they do like runs and concerts and stuff, did you?
They're in this data. We know about they're kind of up in this top line. So we know about,
Okay, is
we
that
don't know
who you're
about their
talking
individual
about, like,
events.
for that number, is that like would it be like partnering with Breckenridge Brewery?
Could be. Yeah, it could be creating like a passport program, right? Where you like go around to different retail businesses and they give you a stamp for coming there and you tie that to a certain event over a certain weekend. Things like that.
Based on what you found so far, are you able to say what is the better bang for its buck? Because certainly lodger's tax is helpful as it results in and drives up the amount of grant money we can give out. But I'm not able to ascertain from your slides whether that's actually more impactful than just having people come in and have dinner and then leave town. And
Depends on what revenue you want to generate, I suppose. I mean, someone who's coming and staying at a lodging establishment is probably also spending money at dinner as well. So it's just the fact that they're here longer means they're spending more. So it's not necessarily about, do you want someone that's going to a restaurant or staying in a hotel? It's that, how do you get them to stay longer? Because the longer they stay, the more money they're spending. I mean, it's essentially, that's really the question.
To talk about number 5, we've been talking about, working with Colorado Creative Industries to create an art district for the city of Littleton. It's something I'm really engaged with and really wanting to do. And I know Anna and Tim and JD are also interested in that. So it's something that I'd like to see this board work toward.
Yeah, I think that's great. I mean, there's a lot of grant funding associated with that and it could really help, I think, also just place make. People a place to go.
for everyone on the board, that's item 6A tonight on the agenda.
All right, well, if you all have any other thoughts about this, you can certainly get in touch, let me know. And again, thanks for the opportunity to come and talk with you all.
Can you just, circling back, what is it you're presenting to council? Like, what is the takeaway that you're hoping that we can feed into that then will be shared with and presented to them? What do you want them to know?
Well, so I think again, if we go back to kind of the overall objectives, right? We are looking at informing them about the size and significance of the arts and culture sector in Littleton. So making sure they understand that it has a very significant role in creating employment, output, contributing to the economy, helping them understand how it does that. So across those pillars, providing some insights, right, between those connections with tourism and lodging. But then I think also from your perspective, and I guess what I was hoping to walk away with was how we can use those results to maybe inform the grant process so that we're catalyzing more of the things that are creating those impacts and driving those pillars in general.
And if I'm a member of council, my question to you is going to be, what do you recommend? What's the number one thing we can do to increase the economic impact of arts and culture in Littleton.
And when the study's done, I hope to have those.
Okay.
That would be
I have a
our
question.
intent for that.
What's the refine process? You mentioned refining. What are you doing when you're gonna refine these numbers?
So, I mean, after this conversation, we'll go back and talk with Placer to get a better sense of exactly what's being measured by them. Because my understanding when we spoke was that, you know, they were giving us sort of where people originated from, where they went to, right? And I think there's some question around whether or not that's the case. So that's part of it. I think, you know, another part is understanding, is there any way that we can pull in, for example, you know, the part-time employment that we know is associated with the Town Hall Arts Center that doesn't show up when we just plug in the expenditures, making sure that the college is adequately represented, right? I mean, it's taking the entirety of everything that we've heard tonight and making sure that it's part of the study.
I think, I can't remember what slide it was on, but I think we're all kind of sensitive, like, I think it feels a little bit undervalued. I can't remember, like, where's your total? Yeah, maybe it's the other events that's just right there, like, does that include Breckenridge Brewery? Other events?
No, again, this is just a snapshot.
Right.
Yeah.
So to me, like, the number, the visits and the number feels maybe low.
Mhm.
I think the others confuse it for me. Because it doesn't feel representative. I don't know what it is. I don't know if that's 10% of all other things or 90% of all other things in the city. And without me knowing that, it's really hard for me to do anything.
Michael, I think we can help you with some of those numbers as well, particularly the ones, I know on the museum side, we can give you exact numbers for a lot of the events that might be helpful to plug in. And then at least it's a second data point from what Placer is giving as well.
That'd be
And
great.
probably some of our other organizations can do the same thing. I think it'd be helpful if that helps you.
Excellent.
And to follow up on the conversation about council, the intent would be to take the final results of the economic impact analysis, look in that data to see if there are kind of those obvious spots of low hanging fruit, right? Where there's room for opportunity to expand the impact and how that translates into a policy action from council. And that's what our team would be responsible for with economic development, is we would look at our economic partnership incentive policy to see if there's tweaks that we can make to the incentive policy for certain businesses or organizations to give greater assistance there. If there's information that this board can use to tweak the annual grants, as Michael was talking about, investments from the city into capital improvement projects through our CIP budget and that planning process, and identifying if there's a clear connection with, an injection of funds in it for a certain facility, that type of thing.
Yeah.
So those are the next steps for the city.
Yeah, and I think that's helpful. There's, as a semi or quasi policy advisory body at least, then it's nice to know that if we increase the number of people that come and stay overnight, that we get $4 back for every $1 we spend.
Right.
Or if we invest in retaining residents and, attending art in your own neighborhood and getting an ice cream cone afterwards, then we get $6 back for every $1 we spend. That's helpful. And I'd love to get there. And then that's measurable year over year or every several years that we can look back and say, okay, we learned this information. We took an action that was either recommended or at least believed to have been impactful, and then measured again 3 years later. That would be wonderful. And having that specific type of direction is great. Because we can do anything and everything. We're awesome. It's just knowing what to do and having data to support that.
I have one quick question. Do you feel like there might be any value in like checking some of the placer data at public art sites?
We do have that information.
Okay.
We just got it this week.
Okay, cool. Okay. Cool. Thanks.
Any other questions? Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Awesome, thank you.
The next item on our agenda is item 6A. Tim, you were leading us through this.
Yeah, should not take very long, but we wanted to give you an idea of some of the things that the board will have on their agenda throughout the rest of this year and probably going into 2027 as well. But nothing is a surprise here. All of these are drawn from the Arts and Culture Strategic Plan, so that's kind of our marching orders going forward. So in no particular order, we'll be working on a venue feasibility study. This is one that I thought was probably going to be at least a year down the road, but some things have popped up in the last few months that have moved this a lot higher on the agenda. The city manager would like to do this in 2026. We're going to be looking at a grant from a local foundation to cover about half the cost of this feasibility study. And then the city is going to be contributing, and Jim is going to be looking for a couple of partners as well for the remaining funding. Assuming that's secured, and we think it will be, then museum staff's been asked to lead this one. So we will be looking at a RFP, review all the submittals. So the board would be reviewing of all of the people's hands. We've been looking at choosing another vendor, much like we did with Keene for the community strategic plan. And then probably Anna and I will manage the vendor and the feasibility study, and ultimately the board would then present those findings to city council. This is one of those items that came up probably most notably throughout all the public engagement pieces that Keene did for the community strategic plan. What we heard loud and clear from pretty much all of our segments that we engaged with was there is a need for some sort of a venue, a performing arts venue of some sort. Now, as you drill down into that, everyone had a different idea of what that was going to look like. So a feasibility study, I think, will be very helpful. Not only identifying maybe what sort of the most popular size is, but also some potential location questions, I think. And, is there a venue that's already in existence, either at the college or the high schools or something like that might already be available, or are we looking at something new? So that I think is going to be interesting, and we will continue to kind of monitor a few of the local situations. I think there may be some potential movement on those, and that's one of the reasons that Jim has really bumped the priority on this. At the same time, probably almost identically at the same time, we'll be partnering with economic development with Rachel's team on a hotel feasibility study. This is one that had sort of a sidelight in the community strategic plan, but it's certainly one that the board has talked about over the last few years. Obviously, revenue from our hotels is the driver for the lodgers tax and for the grant programs that we're able to fund through that. So Rachel has some funding in place for that from her department. The museum is going to contribute $22,000 from our T1 funds for this year. And then she's looking at another funding partner as well in the coming next few days. So she's hoping to get all that in place by the end of the month, and then start sometime in Q2 with the process of going out again for a bidding for a consultant and bringing them on board. And they would like to get that going this year and move fairly quickly on that. I think it's going to do a variety of things. I think one, look at the issues that we're having in filling the beds that we have in our existing hotels right now. Our occupancy rate numbers have not hit what the projections were going into the lodging tax, well, ever since in the 4 years that we've been running it. So that I think is going to be a question mark. And then I think there will be some additional, I know there will be some additional data about, the potential for another hotel and the likelihood that that location will be somewhere considerably different than the county line where our current cluster is. I'm sure you've all heard conversations about potentially a boutique hotel located more in the downtown area. That's one that I think the DDA in particular has been interested in. So this, I think, will be helpful in putting that together, and we will work closely. Ann and I in particular will work closely with Rachel and her team to work on this. I don't think we'll be using BBC, but and they've done some really good work, but I think there are some question marks after the presentation we heard this evening. But
Anyway, I don't think we'll be using Placer AI.
Yeah, we don't use Placer AI anyway, so. But some city departments do use it, and that's fine, but it does not work for the museum, we have found. And then for a third item, these are not in priority order. These are all going to be working on concurrently. Katie mentioned the creative district designation. I know you've been talking with CCI, Anna's been talking with CCI, so we're going to kind of merge those efforts. One of the things that we have talked about initially is settling on a boundary for that. I think there are kind of two options. You could do a district centered just on the downtown area, or you could do a larger district. And what we have talked about is the potential of starting at Broadway, coming down Littleton Boulevard to catch the Mid-Century Modern Mile, and then take a left at Santa Fe, go out to Aspen Grove. The main rule that he was no. The main rule with CCI, or something in between. How about that? The main rule with CCI is it has to be contiguous. So as long as it is connected, you can do it you can do it as large a district as you want to. Sure.
Sorry, will there be an opportunity to present other ideas?
Oh, yeah.
Where we could have it?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. This is just sort of the opening gambit at this point. So there may be plenty of other ideas, and maybe we can chat and I'll see what you're thinking too, because we will want to plug all these things in, and then we'll want to sit down with CCI and see what their thoughts are. There have been questions about whether there's a taxing authority. I don't know that we're interested in doing that. I think there could be some complications with the DDA, which already has taxing authority in the downtown football area. But the whole idea would be to go through this process. Jim is very supportive of getting this designation. He thinks, I know. Jim is very supportive of having this, going through this process and getting this designation. He kind of sees this as the next step. And certainly that would be borne out by what's in the strategic plan. And finally, just as a reminder for all of us, we do have the percent for public art, which was passed last year, which means we are collecting revenue this year for that. We're already started working with the Public Works Department. We've identified what we think are the 4 projects this year that would qualify with a greater than $500,000 budget. We think that will generate in the ballpark of $40,000-ish. So we will continue working with them, putting together the studies on what next year's projects could look like in the years going forward. And then Anna will be working, particularly with the Public Arts Subcommittee, to get some ideas of what we might do. I think what the board had talked about at one point was initially, you would take some of that money from the first tranche that we'll get in probably January of next year, make some sort of an acquisition that could sort of be a statement that this is what the board intends to do with that. And then we may well want to bank that for a while. It is an account that can accumulate. So we may want to bank that for a while so that the board can make a more significant acquisition of something, a real signature piece somewhere here in the city. So that's going to be a piece that while that is a success for having gotten it approved by city council last year, we now have to administer and manage the program. I think that will be a little bit of a challenge. We haven't done this before, but I also think it's an opportunity for the board to really have some really significant input into what the arts community looks like in Littleton going forward, and leave a mark that can be really important. So those are the 4 main items. Next month, Ann and I will bring back to you some of what we consider the kind of the smaller pieces that are also in the plan, but probably more low-hanging fruit type things. These are kind of the big ticket ones. The ones that we'll bring in next month will be more of the smaller pieces, but all really integral into pulling the entirety of the plan together.
So Tim says we're gonna be bored this year.
Real bored.
I don't think that's what it's.
Let me do this. Let's just go 1, 2, 3, 4 down the page and ask for questions or comments, starting first on a venue feasibility study. Anything you want to know or particular we want to cover when we get to that? How about hotel feasibility?
You said the goal for the hotel is to do that study this year as well, or start it this year?
Yeah, the goal with that one's coming out of economic development. That's where it's gonna be headquartered, but the goal would be to start that and hopefully get it finished by this year, end of this year.
The thing I would, a presentation today, being able to review the methodology of how he did that would have been probably a good thing to do before we came in here.
Yeah.
Because I think we're asking questions to him because we are not understanding his methodology at all.
I agree.
And I would like to have questioned him more on his methodology, but I didn't know anything about it. So that would be my only comment with any of these other studies. We might want to read the methodology first before we come in
Yeah,
to
like,
address questions,
Definitely.
things like that.
yeah, like, no different than city council. They get a packet ahead of time. Citizens get to see a packet ahead of time. Yeah, maybe I agree. Cause these are gonna be, there's gonna be big things.
Yeah.
And they're gonna be most likely, in the case of maybe a venue, might be a developer driven thing. So we want to fully understand, what they may be either suggesting or what the appetite out there. I don't know where all that's gonna come from. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think there are a lot of questions about that venue and venue say in particular, but I will just assure the board that we will bring all of that information to you so that you're prepared. Whenever we have someone come in and make a presentation, I want the board to be well prepared and that it's another department's feasibility study, so I'm not gonna complain about that piece of it. Maybe we didn't set Rachel up with the information that she needed to provide to us, but we'll make sure that the methodology is very clear to the board and that you're familiar with that before we bring it into you, and then you can ask more questions.
I'm assuming the venue is a theater venue?
Pardon me?
I don't think that's necessarily determined yet. I think that's part of the question that needs answered. Is it a theater venue?
Oh, yeah, JD's right. I think that's part of the study.
Well, and I think my hope with the studies is they don't come back feeling cookie cutter, like they could fit in Parker or Longmont or Golden. That I'd like to see them have the specifics that will fit Littleton.
Well, I'd like them to be collaborative as well.
The two studies.
No, the venue, like the feasibility studies to the venue.
Oh, yeah.
With the studies, is the intent of those, I think I remember talking about the hotel feasibility study as then being a tool that we can take to potential people who run hotels and say, here's the data, come build a hotel here. Is that the intent of the studies, or?
I think that's part of it. I think that's part of it. I guess whether we take it to the hotels would depend on what the data tells us. Whether it's positive to take back to them. I think part of it though is to inform what the appetite is, or is there an appetite for additional hotel space, and is it an issue about location? We do a pretty critical mass down on county line. Is that the location that we'd be looking at again, or are we looking at something different? I think it probably would be something different, but I think that's part of the question.
Can you talk about why the museum is contributing 22,000 from T1 funds for museums?
Well, they needed
hotel?
they needed some funding for it. We fund a full-time staff position out of our T1 money, and then we have about $22,000 this year for programming of some sort.
Did you want to do that?
What's that?
Did you want to do
I
that?
volunteered it, yeah. We talked about it, we talked about it as a museum team. We do think that there is some significant benefit via the lodger's tax to all of the funding entities, and certainly the T1 entities, to be able to one of the concerns that we've talked about is, with the declining revenue, and even if it stabilizes, it's at a number right now for each of the T1s that in fairly short order, Dennis and I are going to get to the point where that doesn't fund a position full-time anymore. Just the natural growth that those positions have in benefit costs and salary increases could push that above what we're going to have, particularly if there's another reduction to that number. So I think it's a good investment in what we're trying to do via the lodging tax for the museum, and I think by extension for the board and for the community. So yeah, it's not something that we were asked to do. Rachel and I talked about it, and we felt like this would be a good expenditure. We didn't have, one of the things we've been doing over the last couple of years with some of that programming money is Jenny's been digitizing more and more of the collection. We've been doing quite a bit of that, and we felt like this was a year that we could take a step back. Part of that is capacity too. Her team is very busy right now on the revisioning with our history gallery, so we thought this was a year where we could do that.
Can you refresh my memory? I feel like was it over a year ago? Was it economic development that did the presentation and talked about the feasibility study? It was already in their plan when the presentation they gave.
For the hotel?
Yes, for the hotel. And so there was already dollars, I feel like, that was associated with that. Was that some future year, or we're basically just escalating it, or?
Yeah, they were actually hoping to start the feasibility study last year, and then council had different priorities for them, so they had to put that on the back burner, move it into 2026.
Okay.
And then at the time, there was partial funding for it. They hadn't secured full.
Well, it didn't sound like they had. It actually didn't seem like it was a funding thing. It seemed like it was a priority or a time thing with the team.
Yeah, that's definitely what it ended up being. The council had a number of priorities for economic development. They wanted them.
So just an outside consultant's going to fill that hole essentially of time. I don't think they were ever going to do it themselves, do the study themselves. They're always going to use.
They were always going to bring in a consultant, but there's a capacity issue still with managing a study like that. And Rachel has a 3-person team, and there was just so much development going on right then that they were working on, particularly I think with the Costco property and some of those other things that it wasn't tenable last year, so they pushed it to 26.
Okay.
You have a good memory though. I've forgotten when that was.
Well, no, because it's because I had a memory like an elephant when it's something that I wasn't particularly happy with.
Fair enough.
Because at that point I was just like, I feel like it's right in front of you.
Yeah.
The data's like right in front of you. Go survey, look at boutique hotels that are in 50-mile radius. Look at their census. Look at the census of all the hotels that are around. And
I think you're right. And for each of these areas, Percent Guard will mostly be the public art subcommittee and then the full board. But for each of these other pieces, we may very well be looking at or asking the chair to put together a working group on each of these. Certainly with the 2 studies, we'll need board representation to work through the artwork, review the RFPs, and select a vendor. So
do you to further on that one question, do you anticipate with whatever, so you're going to go through like an RFP process, you're going to interview them. Is that a good time to ask them some of that methodology? Like, are you just going to give us a bunch of suggestions, or are you going to show like, yes, you should build a boutique hotel? Is it going to then say, here's the way City of Littleton could privately finance that development? There's an appetite of XYZ developers that this is their stick. Is it going to go into the like?
I would say that's one of the opportunities we'll have to do that. The other opportunity will be in how we structure the RFP itself. One of the things we can do in that is build into the scope of work. These are the expectations we have for you to bring these pieces back to us. How would you do that?
Yeah, but I mean, like is the City of Littleton open to P3 type things?
Yeah, great question. Yeah, those are exactly the things that we'll be looking at. And I do think plugging it into the RFP so that they know what the expectations that the board will have for this to come out of this study. And that will certainly inform the interview questions, I think, as well. They'll need to be able to respond to those things. Some of this they'll submit in advance. Usually we'll get a portfolio from them to start with that would be distributed to their committee members, and then they would come in probably for either in person or virtual interviews.
And just to clarify, with the venue feasibility study, the anticipation is an RFP and would be reviewed by this body.
Yes.
Not with the hotel feasibility study? Is that, that's an economic development department?
It's economic development. Rachel and I we were just talking about this before the meeting a little bit too. My recommendation would be that she asked the board to review. And maybe that's a working group from the board, or maybe it's bringing it into the whole board. But I think that would be helpful, particularly to get buy-in from the board on what the question, what the expectations will be, and then what the results would be. I think would be helpful for her to engage with the board, and she seemed receptive to that. But we'll talk more about it.
I just want an expectation set that what we'll see and what we.
Yeah, I think that's fair, and I think the fact that we're putting some money into it, putting some money where our mouth is, I think that should help with that.
Okay. So the next on the list is the creative district designation. And again, my question is, as we outline the work plan for the year and how this comes together, what it might look like, what questions or comments do you have about that one?
What is CCI?
Colorado Creative Industries. It's a part of the Colorado Department of Economic Development.
What are the general requirements for an arts district or a creative district designation?
And you want to talk about that? I know you looked at some of those requirements.
You have to first do a call yourself creative part of the application process. We've not done that yet, but there are actually surprisingly few like hard and fast rules. One of them is that you have to be a contiguous area, so it can't be, say, just like Littleton Boulevard and you know, and it has to all be connected.
Okay.
It can be Littleton Boulevard. It can't be Littleton Boulevard and Aspen Grove, but nothing in between.
It needs to be contiguous.
Right.
Yeah.
My vision for an arts district that I have mentioned to I think Joel and a couple other people maybe at some point, but I think it would be really lovely to see Gallup become an arts district from here to Littleton Boulevard. Because the library and the museum function as like the heart of arts and culture in the city. And so if we can help draw people down here, and we have two relatively successful businesses like down at the end, there's a lot of commercial space and few single family homes along this route. And I think it's walkable, it's a place that it's like a place that you can kind of come to. Whereas, you know, Littleton Boulevard and then turning onto Santa Fe to get to Aspen Grove is not like when I think of an arts district, like I want to go to Santa Fe and I want to walk like Santa Fe Boulevard, like I want to walk 10 blocks and see what's around. And so I think that keeping it really focused where we can start to draw people, we can have like a public arts festival and start getting people to come down here and stuff. I mean, we already have the craft fair and we can start to draw galleries and we can start to draw other people to the district and start to really build into something where people want to come.
I have, and I'm just, this is just an inclination. I have a sense that there would be a incentive from council to include downtown, no matter how we did it.
I can see that.
But I like your idea, and I think there's a way you could do that too. Maybe it's, well, as long as it's contiguous, you've got a fair amount of flexibility, but I like your idea.
That's my idea.
I like that.
I wanted to address your question a little bit more after looking it up.
Okay.
Contiguous geographically defined area with a high concentration of arts and culture organizations, artists, creative businesses. You have to have formal recognition by local government, broad community support, a minimum $10,000 cash operating budget, and paid staff, and a strategic plan.
Okay. So I would love to be a part. I'm looking forward to the future conversations. I had been thinking about it, totally unknowing that.
I think I just heard you volunteer to be on that on the working group. Thanks, Keely.
Minutes. I mean, I think thinking about like for me, what makes an art district is kind of what we were talking about last night, JD, is that it should be public, open to the public, specifically arts programming, not just a restaurant that has gallery on the walls or, you know, and how those places connect and open to the public in that way. So I do think like, obviously the Bemis Library and the museum, I think ACC has the only two galleries that are, you know, in the city of Littleton. So I think you need to include that in downtown. And I also think like even, you know, you have
Rose Garden isn't a gallery, but like if you're thinking about those like walkable, like the crabapple walk, like could you even use the crabapple walk as what is creating the district in some way? You know, I think there's a lot of ways to kind of think about how
I
to
do too.
connect people.
It's pretty flexible.
You have the Depot Gallery, you have Buck, you know, there's just like a lot. I do agree, but I do think downtown is essential, as well.
I also think one of the first steps we'll take as this conversation unfolds and recognizing that there are a number of partners outside of this room that will likely want to be a part of this conversation.
Yeah.
Perhaps the LDDA, perhaps the Merchants Association, on and on and on. I think one of the first things we should do is really gather an understanding of what an arts district is and what the benefits of it are. Because there are some things that truly can just be accomplished with a great branding campaign. It doesn't have to be a district at all. And then there are benefits to having a district. And I think understanding those first, I mean, it's the methodology
Yeah.
slightly
We gotta-
different.
we
It's
gotta focus on
understanding
methodology.
why should we pursue this? What are the benefits to pursuing a district versus pursuing a branding campaign?
I mean, I think of the district as First Fridays. You're going down, everything's open, there's specific events open during that district at that time. When I think about the Rhino Art District, how it started, artists going from open studios and, you know, it was a whole thing that you did at a specific night. So to me, an art district is not branding. It's also like specific events at a specific time that coalesce, just like the Santa Fe Art District has like their big First Friday, and like you really can tell that something is happening.
Are we able to, because I know that there's the Littleton Boulevard sub-area plan and a committee that's being formed around that with representatives from different groups and residents and all of that. Are we able to form that type of a committee where we would have like a handful of ACB members and then like a representative from the DDA and a representative from the Littleton Merchant Association and sort of start to have that like working group? Do we have the authority to create?
It's a great question. I kind of think we do. I will confirm that though. That's a great question.
Because I think that it could
That'll
be,
helpful in the
to
process.
JD's point, like, we can start the conversation amongst ourselves, but I think that when we're really getting the rubber to the road, it would be great to get feedback from other, like input.
Yeah.
I would offer that
tangible
we're
from
the
other people.
appropriate group within the city to land on a recommendation of should Littleton have an arts district. I do think that
Yeah.
squarely fits
Yes.
into our room. And then how we go about it would be the next step, I think.
Yeah.
And I do agree, like, I think that like the DDA and the Merchants Associations, like they're doing, and even Project Downtown, like all the things like need to come together to support.
And the hard part will be too, is once you involve the merchants and the LDDA and project, then downtown is almost a certainty.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I don't know if that is the best place for it versus Gallup versus when the Littleton Boulevard sub-area plan, which for this body, Cameron and I both represent.
Okay.
There was a good conversation about that stretch being a potential for an arts district with the number of historic buildings that are there. And there was a strong interest that night in making sure that that was all protected, that history in the mid-mod mile was recognized as part of that sub-area plan, whatever results it comes back to. And so that's where I hesitate to necessarily say we're automatically going to have all those other stakeholders in. I think that's where we can really speak to what is an arts district, what are the benefits, what's right for Littleton, and then decide how we pursue that if he's in the room. And then the last thing, percent for public art. Any comments or questions there?
I have a couple of comments about
Please.
that. Especially because we are pulling in funding right now.
this year, this calendar year is a great opportunity for education. For when we get to the percent for public art, what do we do with the money? Some of the foundational documents that we had in the Fine Arts Board, and Joni, I know you are probably familiar with a lot of these too. Just starting with what is public art? We just need to educate ourselves of, what is public art? What does the acquisition process look like? How does conservation play into that and finding a location? So I know we've talked a little bit about pulling some of those documents that we had from the Fine Arts Board that were put into place, but it will help us understand a little bit better what we will be asked to do when the funds come in. And I think we'll be better prepared to do it in a very thoughtful manner. So I think this is our year to really educate ourselves as much as possible and learn from the past and what we've done before.
So, and then we'll move on to our last bit of business. I think what we're looking at is April will be the transition month. That's where we'll all be reoriented and we'll do officer elections. Don't know if we have a lot of business teed up for April.
No, we usually, since it's, so we have new members coming on board, so we usually have a very full agenda for that first night.
Maybe look at subcommittee membership again. And then I was gonna say May is a little bit open. And then June, July, and August, I think, are grant heavy.
Yeah, at least some part of those three, yeah.
And then I will say that June 9th, I think, is the
June 9th, yes.
Is the study session with council where one of our biannual joint meetings at a study session with city council. So as always, I think everyone is welcome. I don't know how that'll be formatted or structured, but that's our night.
And this one will largely be status review and update on where we are with the community strategic plan. So
and
I'd check in with council.
Is that the night that we get to?
That sounded like Rachel and her team was going to be doing the same night. So let's see if we can go second and we can get a front row seat.
I'll bring flowers. Maybe, I don't know. And then that pushes us into September, October, November for a lot of this work. And then do we have a date for the dinner? Boards and commissions dinner, is that?
It is June 17th.
There's another date for you, June 17th, on your calendar.
And State of the Arts is on the 1st.
State of the Arts is on April 1st.
No kidding.
No kidding.
Yeah, I hate doing this. Can I back up just 1 second? Still on number 4. I just have 2 questions. So if this is buried in the policy, you can send it to me. Projects costing over 500,000, are they commercial projects?
No,
Only, so even if I built a house.
Public side right now.
So even like a residential house that's over 500,000?
Yeah,
we only public.
We only did public for this first iteration.
Got it. Okay. Yeah, got it.
Is all that housing that they're building on Bellevue, it's massive, does that count towards this?
No, it's only public projects.
Essentially city projects.
That's what I kind of thought I heard you say, was identifying city projects that was driving that, and I was like, wait a second.
Yeah.
Understanding.
Yeah, we did talk about, public and private, and at this point we have council approval for the public side, so it's probably kind of a test run.
My only heartburn with that is that's the taxpayers paying that 1%. You're not dinging developers 1% of their construction projects.
Right, on the public side, it's public money.
It becomes a tax to your, it's like Excel Energy, building a bunch of infrastructure and then raising the cost of the taxes or whatever your service is for their purposes, so to speak. That's my only, this is probably a crawl, walk, run type thing when it comes to the policy. So
I think it is. No, I think that was one of the things that council, they actually went faster on this than I thought they were going to. I didn't think we'd get this until next year, probably. They approved it last year, which I think is good because it gives, one of the things we were hoping for is, kind of a test run, kind of a runway for working with the public projects, which will be easier. you get into on the private side, now we have streamlined the policy, so it's not quite as onerous as some percent public art programs are. But when you get into the public or the private side, it's a lot more negotiation, project by project by project. It's not just sitting down with the Public Works Department and mapping out those that are gonna fit within that over 500,000. So this gives us an opportunity, I think, get a little more familiar with how exactly to run this.
Well, and the 1% can be incorporated into the project. So it can be like artistic elements in like a bike lane construction or something along those lines. It doesn't have
Or
to
like,
be
or like a
cash.
fence over on a
Yeah.
bridge
Or a
over a
fence on a
railroad
bridge.
depression, which by the way was really good.
I love it.
But like part of it is also like for our projects, for like the public works project.
I think I'm just
I think
delighted.
I see it a little bit as also encouraging the city to like find creativity
As
in
you're
the
doing
projects
your
that they're doing.
Yeah, totally.
Less so of like, okay, fine, I'll just add, like, we're gonna add 1% to the project cost so we can pass it off to this. Is my kind of take on it. Like, obviously, we're gonna have actual cash, but
And I think we'll see that more going forward. One of the things that we knew we were gonna run into this year is a lot of these projects are already a chunk of the way, down the road. So, Public Works certainly felt this year for 26, it was easier just to do fee and lieu. So that'll give a
makes
nice
sense,
little savings account for the board to work with. But I think you're right, Hugh. I think as we go forward, certainly they're gonna be interested, they're gonna be looking for opportunities to integrate art into the design of these different public projects. And they have already told us multiple times, engineers don't want to be picking out artwork, so they'll be coming to the public art subcommittee
I was like,
and the arts and
hopefully
culture
coming to
board.
us sooner than they did with Rich.
And that is another presentation that we've talked about from in a leadership standpoint, is bringing Public Works in to present their 5-year capital improvement plan to the Arts and Culture Board. So that we, as good as our Blue Mountains look, I keep thinking if we had had a 3-year runway,
Yeah,
that bridge
totally.
would be
Could be
spectacular.
fabulous.
Right.
Yeah.
Instead of a 3-week runway.
Yeah.
We had one meeting.
One packet of color swatches, yeah.
1,000 colors in one
And
meeting.
no one was more surprised than Public Works when council insisted on that. So.
All right, well, we have one more item on the agenda. I am actually going to turn it over, if I may, to our vice chair to run the element of new business.
So Anna, I think, is getting ready to pass out.
That's out.
Hopefully not. Pass out. The Arts Award nominations for us, we should have had a chance to review that.
Anna, how many stickers? Just one per person. Oh, you only get one.
Yes.
Oh, boy.
Yes, and you cannot split it in half or thirds or anything else. So, much like last year, was everybody here last year to do this? You were asked to review all of the different, nominees, and do you have another one? The nominees, the list?
The list right here.
Yes, I grabbed that.
I haven't
one.
gotten them yet.
I know.
Sorry.
I didn't even make that. So I'm just gonna go through them really quick by name and who was nominated on here. We're not having a discussion like we have, in the first year. Last year went very smoothly. Just gonna go through who the nominees are. Hopefully you all took your homework, to heart and studied this, and then we are going to write one, or some of these are more than one name on your Post-it note to vote, collect them and tally. So the first nomination is Bobby and Allison Turnillo from the Littleton Valley Academy. They're co-directors. I was the nominator on that one. The next one we have is David and Kelly Cates from JD on behalf of Littleton Arts. Next, we have JD from, front and back. Oh, front and back. My apologies. But we do have two for David and Kelly Cates. We've got from Paul Parrish and JD. JD McCrum, who was nominated by Allie Romeo. JD McCrum, who was nominated by Elizabeth Watson. Krista Falkenstein from Jen Starkey. Crystal I'm not sure how to say her last name. Joshua Ho. Lift Up Littleton from Tammy Slipper. And Records on Main from Tammy. So one more, and there's one more. Oh my gosh. Used bookstore sponsored by the Friends of the Littleton Library Museum. I'm pulling it. So there are a lot of really wonderful nominees this year. They have all been notified that they were nominated. They have all been invited to the State of the Arts. So we will be recognizing them that evening. And there's some really great nominees in here for you guys to take a look at. So I don't know if you need another moment to read through. And if you're ready, you can go ahead and write a name or names. They go together.
And I'm not declining my nominations, but I politely ask you to vote for someone else.
JD, you're great, but.
So you've been talking.
She's
with
just
my wife.
following directions. Yeah.
So a couple of these nominations live right next door to me.
Who's in the neighborhood?
You're ready. I will run and pick them up and I will tally.
JD, at last year's event, I think, I don't know, I can't remember it clearly, but I do remember like the recognition for the winner. I don't remember a big recognition for all the nominees. Can we do that? If we're inviting all the nominees, can we make sure we do that too?
Absolutely, yeah, we will make sure to do that this year. It's a no. Their names are in the program and like presentation. Okay.
Who am I missing? You know, I'm gonna just think.
I haven't finished.
Oh, all right.
Stare at you.
And if you haven't yet RSVP'd to the State of the Arts or want to, I'm sure that you could
There's
turn
a
around
QR
and
code.
And I know, it's a really wonderful event. It's a nice way to honor not just the people that have been nominated, but the work that's happening in the community. A lot of the CAP members come and participate. We've got Littleton Symphony Orchestra on.
Please actually RSVP and don't just tell me.
Please actually RSVP, but you could tell her on the way out.
can also
I will be
tell me, but-
RSVPing as soon as I
Don't just.
And I believe.
I already are.
Yeah, I believe even if we've already RSVP, we still get the emails to RSVP. Is that true?
Yeah, unfortunately.
Okay.
Did everyone put
I
theirs?
think I've RSVP.
But if
Last
you
year- last year there was-
forgot that you already RSVP'd and you fill it out a second time, they will tell you you've already responded to the survey.
Oh, that's good to know.
I've heard.
Just to confirm everyone's in, right? Okay, right.
Nice.
Yep.
Feels like we need some Jeopardy music.
Be quiet.
Too quiet. So my question about the district, does the district come first or does the art come first?
I think according to their recommendations, there needs to be at least
Something there first.
a good representation of art first.
Yeah. You need to have at least some critical mass.
Is there a discussion among the Littleton Boulevard area committee to make it a better name for the district, for?
I mean, we've had, I don't know that there's any discussion at all.
Because you only had one meeting?
Yeah, there's one meeting for the stakeholders. And I don't know to what extent stakeholders will be involved in
Gotcha.
decision-making so much as just touch points and how do you feel about this?
Gotcha.
Drum roll. I know, wow, ask. So with 4 votes, David and Kelly Cates are. Bobby and Ally received 2 votes. Records on Main received 2 votes, and JD, even though you said not to, somebody voted for you.
That was him.
So nice work. And this is something that I really think we can be proud of. I love that we do this, and I think it's something that the community rallies behind. And every year we get more nominees, more wonderful nominees, and I think that this is a really great couple that we've.
And
elected.
yeah, and JD,
So
while I thank you for nominating them, these are my next door neighbors.
They're your next.
You know, we have raised our kids together, done.
Well, I think Paul said it very well. They are indeed giants in the article.
And Kelly has brought me out of my comfort zone with more than one dance in the street. So. So there will be a flash mob. I think we just need to plan on that
Excellent.
on that night. So let's go.
Will the write-ups be available for public consumption in some fashion or form?
I would like for them to be, and I can post them on the CDX website.
Yeah, and I'm gonna turn it back over to you now that that is on the way.
I think the last thing on the agenda then is a roundtable. We can, if there's anything that you want to draw attention to or event that you're particularly excited about, now's the time. We always start with Joe because he's the.
I got nothing really. I'm gonna be seeing some theater productions in the next number of weeks around March. One of them actually, Magic Moments, so you've heard of them. One of our great friends or neighbors, she's actually in the production. She did it when she was really, really young, and now she's an adult, kind of starting her first job as a teacher, and I decided to go back to it, and she's got a part in that, and so we're gonna go see her.
Nice.
But she's been doing it for years.
Nothing big. If you're interested in any kind of little kids doing presentations, performances, the Lion King's playing next Wednesday at the East Community Center. I think about 4.
So shout out to Heritage High School. My daughter just finished Oliver like 5 minutes ago. I need to run and go see her. There's another performance tomorrow night and 2 performances on Saturday, a matinee and an evening performance. Saturday evening, I actually have a opening reception. If you didn't know, March is the month of printmaking. So I have some work in a printmaking show at NK Collective, which is a gallery in Englewood, right next to Mutiny, and it's a gallery that I would love to see in Littleton. So something like that. Let's work on that.
That would be cool.
And then just to let you guys know, in April, and I'll be bringing lots of cards, and I'll post it on Visit Littleton. But Art and Design is going to have a big pop-up exhibition again, and taking over the whole Lululemon at Aspen Grove, and it will also include the pottery sale this year. So the pottery sale will be with the student work, not at ACC. So there'll be lots going on.
When is that?
The opening is Thursday, April 23rd from 5:30 to 7:30, and then it will be open for 3 weekends, including the Park Street Market. There'll be a lot of time.
I got to see Spamalot at Town Hall, which was really fun. And I'm looking forward to seeing The Wiz, that's opening soon, right?
20th of
Yeah.
March, I believe.
And then Littleton Q is hosting we're calling it Cheers Queers wine tasting with Kate's on April 9th. And then we have a run of Littleton Proud shirts to start building some representation for our community. And we'll be customizing those at the library on May 9th.
Oh,
So we'll have sewing machines and all kinds of stuff to do what you want with your shirts, so.
Records on Main is doing a ton of Women's History Month stuff. Whole slate of events throughout the rest of this month. So definitely stopping by some of those. And I went to the Harry Styles listening party last week, so.
Saw Frank Turner last night.
Oh my God.
So that was fun. Was up way too late. And have
School night
been
too,
listening to
welcome.
Oliver for months and months
Me too.
and months. They fed the kids gruel the other night for breakfast or for dinner before the show. It was sad.
I heard about it.
So anyway, talk about.
It's called method acting.
Yeah, right. So anyway,
Nice.
If you would like to attend the CBCA Annual Awards Luncheon, please let me know in the next week or so, just so we can get those names over. So far, I have JD, Kate, and Tim Fulai. If you would like to, April 21st, 11 to 1:30. It's a Tuesday. So tough for a lot of people, but.
Did you send a calendar invite for that?
Did I?
Yeah,
No, I didn't.
okay.
Oh, and Katie just RSVP'd recently too. You're also one, right? You're coming?
Me?
You are, Katie.
Oh, I was like, you said it already. Just want to know when it is. When is it again?
April 21st.
April 20th.
So with that one too, I think if you're interested, if you think you're interested and you just need to check, let Anna know that too. Because otherwise we want to fill the seats with council members or department heads or other people that will benefit from it. But first blush goes to this body.
That's
I don't have anything upcoming, but Spamala was really fun. Loved it. I don't have anything local, but I am going to a massive arts and culture weekend starting tomorrow morning in New York City. And I have packing panic. So I have not started packing. I still have to work tonight, so but I will report back. That's the only thing on the agenda is museums and concerts and
fun.
Your flights go well.
yes, I'm gonna get there. I went to Iceland and saw the lights show. They have an annual lights festival, so I need to share some of those photos and ideas that I got with the communications team. And there is a new, not arts, but there's a new rugby team called the Littleton Lemons. They're playing on Saturday. I'm gonna go check them out. They play it in Sheridan and we're gonna change that.
Yes, we do have to change that. I'll see you there, Jenny.
All right, sounds good.
Littleton Q sponsors.
I will invite you also to mark July 24th on your calendars if it's not already. That's the Illuminate Main Street event, which Alexandra and the communications and events and economic development team are really trying to lean into the arts and culture with that, with little pop-up galleries throughout the districts, with roving musicians, with they're really trying to make it a powerful event, not just for the city, but also with a strong arts and culture tie. So to the extent that you're able to show up and invite friends and neighbors to that, I think it's going to be a wonderful show with a state-sponsored drone show. So what I've been told is well, yeah, that sounds good. But it's twice the size as the Western Welcome Week and Candlelight Walk drone show. So they're very excited about all of those things. Spam Lot was great. The Wiz, I got to see part of a rehearsal, is going to be amazing. So if you get a chance to go see The Wiz, please do so. Also make sure if your sense of humor aligns with it, keep Avenue Q in mind at Town Hall Arts Center. Voices West performs this coming up Friday and Sunday. The symphony's not until May 8th, I think. Gallery openings. There's a lot to do. Are you talking about ballet?
You go for it.
Oh, I don't even know the dates.
The same.
May, the ballet is performing. And then the other thing is personally, I facilitated a conversation with a number of music performers and venue leaders throughout Littleton a couple weeks ago and got tremendous input and feedback from those individuals on what can be done to elevate the accessibility and impact and awareness of live music throughout Littleton. We have so many outstanding groups. And just to reiterate, Oliver, the high schools and ACC put out so much material and their marketing is so bad. But to the extent that we as insiders are able to lean into that and go see those high school shows and go see even the middle school performances are educational. So just be aware that all exists. And I will share the report out from that roundtable to all of you. If you're not interested, you don't have to read it, but I'll share it with you regardless.
I have a quick question. Regarding like Eliminate Littleton and other community events like that, would we be able to, or would we want to like have a booth there to start educating people, like our community on what public art is and that we have an arts and culture board and what we do, like what that looks like and what we do?
I know that the short answer to that is there's not gonna be booths, but we might be able to pull some strings.
Maybe the block party or something, but.
Yeah, I think it's a great idea.
Just to get in front of people a little bit.
Yeah, we can check with Jessica.
Let them all know that we are awesome.
You can come to Pride. You can do whatever you want.
How about Pride?
It's hard to follow that up, but I just want to say one thing. It's probably not super new, but compliments to the library. If you're not aware of this, you can now check out games from the library. And our family has loved this. We recently checked out you know my family, the giant, if you've ever played Taco Cat Goat Cheese Pizza, they have giant cards now. We laughed so hard. I can't tell you how hard we laughed, but it was hard to play the game. So the giant cards are worth checking out at the library. And we have now a game called That Is Not a Hat. It's another card game. I would highly recommend. So there's lots of really cool games, but there's some really wonderful resources at the library. And I'm so glad that you did that.
Thank you for the plug. To clarify, we've had video games on offer for quite some time. Denise is referring to our new board game collection.
Board and card games.
Board games
Yes.
and card
I
games.
might actually go in there and actually get some of those.
They're fantastic.
Yeah, if you happen to drop by the first week that it was available, you would have seen a fair bit to pick up on Monday, but by Friday it was like 70% checked out.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
It's a fairly recent addition, so we're glad to see it going so well.
I love that.
That's great.
That's
Cool. So thank you. Thank you to the library.
Thank you.
The library does
We love
have
the
some
library.
city things.
Yeah, you'd be like counting.
And this is my very last chance to filibust, because I am done as chair next month. So, thank you all. It has been an honor to serve in this role, and I'm excited to serve for another 3 years, but in the heckling section instead of,
He's gonna start throwing tomatoes.
Kate Eckel and I have
Yeah.
decided that we're gonna start our own little, past chair heckling section.
Oh my gosh.
So look out.
Well, so you're gonna bring snacks every meeting
I
then,
mean,
right?
it feels
Yeah.
like it might be appropriate. at
Yeah.
least every-
Sounds good.
That is all, and I will adjourn the meeting at 8:30. Thanks, everybody.